This, my dear virtual little siblings, is the tried and true method that has helped dozens of students just like you nab their very first internship. Today, we'll review concepts like the importance of modeling, warm versus cold intros. I'll share my 5 must-know tips. Then I'll break down how to crack into internships by industry, complete with email templates. We'll start with business and finance before diving into STEM research opportunities and ending with law and public policy. Before we begin, I just want you guys to know that this is not easy. If it was, every single teenager on this planet would have half a dozen amazing internships that they could cherry pick from, but that is just not our reality. So, disclaimer, don't be afraid if you fail, don't be afraid if you get rejected. That is 100% normal. Look, even Ivy League undergrads are struggling with this. Trust me, I've been there. But imagine that you do manage to apply all these techniques and tricks effectively. A few months from now, or even a few weeks from now, you don't just have one opportunity, but 3 or 4 different offers from organizations, companies whose missions you genuinely resonate with. By the way, I'm Kevin, Yale grad, amateur breakdancer, pro college counselor. 4 or 5 years ago, I co-founded Elevated, and since then we've helped students from every background imaginable gain acceptances to every single top 20 US college. But we're not just a college consulting agency. Jeff and I, we started this company, this organization, because we want to help students like you tell the best stories possible so that you can get the best opportunities available. That's really what we're all about. Most of the videos on this channel are about getting into college, but once you get that acceptance letter, welcome to your next existential crisis, getting a job. It's scary, I get it. I totally empathize with you and your position, which is why I have spent over a dozen hours scripting, editing, filming this video so I could help you. Seriously, this isn't about me. I honestly have nothing to gain here. I just care so deeply for you guys and I don't want you to have to struggle like I did. On a more serious note, maybe some of you guys can relate to this. I shotgunned and applied to over 100 different firms on LinkedIn. That was back in 2018, 2019, desperately trying to get an internship while I was an undergrad at Yale. I attended Yale on full financial aid. And back in those days, all I wanted was to get a high-paying, cushy job so that I could support my family, help pay off their credit card debt. Funny thing is, I only ended up doing one internship at this nonprofit in Argentina, of all places, which is where I met my wife. I ended up focusing on building businesses and doing all these pitch competitions. I was a part of Yale's accelerator. However, my co-founder Jeff, he did a bunch of internships. He worked at PlayStation, which he didn't really love, interned at a huge consulting company called Ernst & Young, also interned at a startup his very first year at Yale. So actually a lot of this advice comes from him. Thank you, Jeff. Let's start with the basics. Stop what you're doing right now and make a damn LinkedIn account. Even if you don't have a ton of work or volunteer experiences right now, that's okay. Just list the ones you have. And yes, school clubs, extracurricular involvement, all of that totally counts. Let's be real for a sec, guys. You are a teenager, or maybe in your early 20s. No one is expecting you to have decades of experience. So take that professional headshot, upload it to LinkedIn, and then most importantly, follow the schools, companies, and industries that you are most interested in. This sounds super simple, and yet it's super key. Once LinkedIn understands what you're searching for, then their algorithm will better understand how to recommend the right opportunities, companies, and gigs for you to look into. After that, my friends, it's time to model. Copy what works. How? By LinkedIn stalking. This is how it's done. Study profiles of alums from your high school or college within the industry that you want to pursue. Like, guys, the next time you see someone in your city or university commit to one of your dream schools or jobs, don't just scroll past and envy. Instead, why not learn from someone who already made it? Think of it like this. They already did all the heavy lifting by finding opportunities for you. Now all you have to do is apply. Go to their work experiences and look at what they did. If this is the only thing you learn from this video, I'll honestly be so thrilled. Here's a really concrete example, right? Like, let's say you saw someone from your hometown. I'm from Miami. I saw someone from Miami get into Yale, and they're majoring in global affairs, international relations there. I go to their LinkedIn, and I see that they did YYGS, that's Yale Young Global Scholars. They did tons of Model UN, wow. They also interned with their senator or governor, and they won these John Locke essay contests for their analytical papers about international politics. Well, guess what I should be focusing on for the next year or two? The roadmap, the recipe, it's literally right there. Exact same thing if you want to get one of those coveted, cushy internships at FANG. See what those guys did beforehand. Maybe they ran hackathons, or maybe they did USICO. Maybe they have really impressive projects, research projects linked to their GitHub. After you analyze what these guys do well, don't just study one profile, right? Take a look at a few different ones, see what kind of patterns emerge. Then after analyzing it, now it's time for the next step. Send them a DM, which brings me to cold emailing. Now, the very first thing to know about cold emailing is that actually we want to avoid cold emailing. In fact, focus on warm intros and warm leads first. But Kev, what is a warm intro? Well, I'm so glad you asked. In short, a warm intro is when your friend introduces you to another friend, opportunity, company, whatever. And so you go through a friend of a friend, right? A cold email, is when you contact someone that you've never contacted before. At the end of the day, cold email is a hashtag numbers game. You could email 500 people and maybe just get 10 responses back, which honestly is pretty good. That said, you only need one quality opportunity every summer. And typically the first opportunity is the hardest to get. After that, it gets easier and easier. It's kind of like a snowball. Back to warm intros. Typically, the conversion rate for warm intros is amazing. It's like over 50%. Family connections, teacher connections, friend connections. I cannot understate just how valuable these are. For cold emails, the conversion rate is obviously much lower. It might be less than 5% or 3%. Depends on your industry and your approach. Before that, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us in our mission of sharing these resources to more phenomenal students around the world, just like yourself. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. All right, in this next section, let's talk about how to get an internship by industry, starting with business. Even if you're not interested in becoming a hedge fund manager, don't skip this section since it's chock full of tips and tricks that really work for any industry. This is the part that's filled with everything that I wish someone had told me when I was your age. To reiterate, cold emailing is difficult, which is why your virtual big bro decided to write up a message template that you could simply copy paste and send. Ta-da! Check it out. I'll also attach it in the description and the comment section below. Hi, name. My name is your full name, and I'm introduce yourself. What grade are you? What school are you from? I came across your profile while studying leaders in XYZ industry, and I was genuinely inspired by your work at name of company. Specifically, I couldn't believe blank, blank, blank. Or specifically, I was struck by how you went from blank to blank. So this kind of personalization is insanely critical, right? You can't just be sending mass messages that look copy-pasted. You have to spend a little bit of work digging through the person of interest profile, connect with them on a meaningful level. It's insane how many students don't do this, and yet this is the most crucial step. I've been passionate about a specific area of interest / passion for some time now, and I would love the opportunity to learn from someone like you with your experience and perspective. So far, I've demonstrated proof of passion. So this is the part where you show that you have some skin in the game, right? You can't just say, oh, I'm randomly interested in quantum computing, but I have never even read a quantum computing book. I've never even watched a quantum computing video. Even if you just spend 30 minutes educating yourself on the subject, that shows leaps and bounds related to your proactivity and curiosity. And that makes this random stranger more likely to help you, to invest in your cause. I know you must be incredibly busy, but if you'd be willing to connect for a brief virtual coffee chat or in-person coffee chat if you guys are physically located close to them, so I can learn more about your work, do let me know. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to read my message. Best regards, warmly, your name. Most of the time, I would recommend not directly asking for an internship. This is particularly critical for the business world. Instead, ask for a coffee chat, for a casual conversation. You could even potentially ask to shadow someone, which is basically when you follow them around, like a shadow, and you see what they're up to for a day. I did this when I was about 17, 18 in college, and I shadowed a girl from Yale who was doing sales and trading, right, at this huge bank. And I was shocked at what I saw. She got up at 5, went to the office at 6. She was doing all these kinds of calls and glued to a monitor, actually not one monitor, literally like 6 monitors. And she's like, oh yeah, it's not so bad. You know, unlike the M&A guys and what are they called? The investment bankers. At least we get to get out of here by 5 or 6. You know, we get in early, but we leave early. I was like, maybe I'm not cut out for finance after all. But back to shadowing and the coffee chat. If that goes well, then you can slowly start to ease in the idea of an internship. Like a lot of these firms, sometimes they have formal internship programs, but sometimes they don't. And so you might be able to create something that's more under the table, casual, but at the same time, those kinds of flexible opportunities is where you get to learn the most. That's kind of what we have at Elevated, at our organization. We didn't even start with a formal internship program, but a lot of the students that we helped get into college, we saw that they had these really unique skill sets. And so they asked me, I asked them if they would be willing to help us out, and voila, now we have like 10 interns. On to my 5 must-know tips. Tip number 1, stay organized. Keep a spreadsheet of who you've emailed and when. Reason being, you're gonna wanna follow up after a few days if you don't hear back. Earlier, I mentioned that less than 5% of people respond to cold emails. But a follow-up drastically improves that percentage, sometimes up to 10 or 20%. Tip number 2, use Streak. Streak is a free Chrome extension that allows you to see when and if people have viewed your emails. Gasp. Oh my goodness, seriously guys, this is a total game changer. I've been using Streak for over 8 years now, and it's honestly incredible. This will tell you if your email is bouncing and not getting read, or if your message is being read, but it's not quite landing or working, so you need to modify your approach. Returning back to coffee chats. When it comes to conversations with strangers, prep is paramount. Tip number 3 is simple, over-prepare. Knock this stranger's socks off. These days, students even come to us and they ask for internships, but they haven't done the simple prep of looking through our website, studying my profile on LinkedIn, taking a look at our social media, where a lot of the times some of the questions they ask could have just been answered or covered in a YouTube video. Instead, do the complete opposite. Even just improving the quality of your questions drastically improves the odds of you landing that dream internship. If you're not sure what to ask, don't worry, got you covered. Here are some of my favorite questions. As you're analyzing their trajectory on LinkedIn, you can ask them what led them to this industry in the first place. What were some of their biggest challenges along the way? What's your favorite and least favorite part of the job? What's been your highest high and your lowest low in your career? Also a really good question. Always a good idea to ask for advice they wish they had back when they were your age. Finally, my 4th or 5th and favorite question. What skills should I focus on learning so that I can make an instant contribution or impact to your company down the line, like in 3 months or 6 months if I hypothetically had an internship here? Let me rewind a little. Obviously, don't just send them all these questions in your very first DM. In fact, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is tip number 4, find common ground. Find that shared connection. The similar to me effect is a cognitive bias that kind of explains our tendency to connect more quickly, easily with folks who think like us, look like us, talk like us. So use this to your advantage. LinkedIn stalk the person of interest to see what they do, not just in work, but also out of work, recreationally. If they're a current or former student athlete and you play the same sport, leverage that shared connection. I've personally used this countless times over the years to connect with other Asian edupreneurs, entrepreneurs in the education space. And these days, when I send a message, the reply rate is like over 80% just because we have these similar traits. My 5th and final tip is to use reciprocity. Sending someone a tiny gift, like a $5 Starbucks gift card, not only communicates your gratitude, but it also creates this feeling of indebtedness and makes people way more likely to help you because they kind of want to repay this debt. It may sound a little bit like dark sales psychology, but it works. I just want to end this section by saying, don't stress if you're not getting responses or if your coffee chats aren't panning out yet. Cold emailing and talking to strangers, guys, it's nerve-wracking, especially as a young person, but it's like a muscle. The more you work out this skill or muscle, the better you get at it. That's just facts. Be patient. Know that it may take dozens of emails to get just a few coffee chats to get an internship, but if you keep persevering, success is pretty much guaranteed. Moving on to computer science. Yes, the coveted software engineering jobs at Meta or Netflix that pay tens of thousands a summer. Computer science is kind of a paradox. On the one hand, it feels like one of the most accessible fields for students to break into. On the other, it also feels like everyone is constantly competing for the same opportunities. Here's the thing, companies might not be actively recruiting students like you, but this combination of coding and drive can open so many doors. Empires have been built by scrawny teenagers who know how to code. That was true 10 years ago, it's still true today, and it will still be true 10 years from now. Top companies like Google, Apple, Meta, honestly, they care more about your capabilities than that piece of paper, your degree or your diploma. So the first thing that I would recommend is building really solid foundational skills. Learn Python, Java, take all the free resources on the internet. Harvard CS50 course is a great place to start. MIT has a bunch of free lectures online, Khan Academy. But that's just, the bare bones, the bare minimum. After that, you need to start building advanced skills through personal projects. This is the secret sauce. Start specializing, guys. Like, most people know Java, right? But how many people have extensively studied cybersecurity or cryptography? There's literally thousands of resources online for these actually super specialized and niche subjects, so I don't want to hear any excuses. Then, once you have some specialized knowledge, start combining it with really interesting interdisciplinary subjects. Like, let's say you're a master at cryptography and UX. Okay, that's super interesting. Let's say you have a dual passion for cybersecurity and literature. Once you have a project or two under your belts, post it on GitHub, add it to your LinkedIn, and now that you have something cool and tangible to show and talk about during coffee chats, it's time to pew pew pew, start firing away. I won't read this cold email template out loud, but I'll show it on the screen. Feel free to shamelessly steal. That's what I'm here for. For your first tech internship, I honestly wouldn't even bother applying for opportunities at the major tech conglomerates, but instead invest in local labs, startups, even small businesses that aren't necessarily tech focused, but they need automation, they need help digitizing some of their products and services. Let me introduce you to your new best friend, startups. And no, I don't mean Uber or Airbnb, I mean your friendly local neighborhood startup. These internships are way less competitive, and sometimes these small, rapidly growing companies don't even have formal internship programs. But they're the most desperate for folks like you with talent and passion. Just because there's no job posting doesn't mean there's no job. A really simple but effective way to find local tech startups is just to Google your city accelerator. For example, I'm from Miami, but this could work for Atlanta, Austin, Seattle. Just look up Atlanta Accelerator, Austin Accelerator, Seattle Accelerator, Miami Accelerator. You'll find 100 budding startups who recently gained some venture capital funding, something like that, who recently, won a pitch competition, and I promise you, they're always looking for talent. There's also some websites where you can connect with founders directly, like WellFound. Finding founders on LinkedIn and shooting them a personalized DM usually has a higher response rate than, say, cold emailing a senior engineer at Microsoft, unless that senior engineer is your uncle. Now, let's say you're a STEM nerd and you really want to become a professor, perform high-level research, win a Nobel Prize or 3. Just like the CS folks, I highly recommend you start by building your foundation. It's crazy to me how many kids are reaching out these days without understanding the basics. Know what a published paper looks like, understand the process, learn a little bit about how labs in your intended field of interest actually function. Astrophysics research is totally different from neuroscience research. If you have an older friend, cousin, uncle who's worked in a formal research lab, contact them. Even if it's not the same academic discipline, they might know a colleague who's doing that type of research and they can connect you. These warm intros, guys, I can't stress this enough. They are 10 times more effective than any cold email. It doesn't have to be family either. Find alums from your high school or college. Then start emailing them, asking them for advice and coffee chats. But before you begin your cold email spree, hit up your teachers. Specifically, ask your STEM teachers at your high school or college if they can hook you up and connect you with 1 or 2 people in your intended field of interest. Next, find local labs. The key word here, my friends, is local. You don't have to live on MIT or Stanford's campus. Every city, most major cities, or at the very least your state, will have a major research institution. I'd start there. Typically, your 4-year public university, like the University of Kentucky or Florida or Alabama, they're way more likely to take on high schoolers, young people as research assistants, research interns than, say, Harvard. To get started, it's really as simple as Googling your city, research lab, plus your academic interests, chemistry, computer science, religious studies, whatever. Once you've identified faculty profiles and websites, be sure to read the actual investigators' research before you send an email to them. You can also use LinkedIn or Google Scholar. Simply search by university, then filter by research interests. Here's another tip that I recommend. Instead of going after the head honcho, the professor who's won a Nobel Prize, you actually kind of want to find people a little bit closer to you. Assistant professors or grad students, or even sometimes undergrads who are doing research. At the very least, talk to them. See how they got that opportunity. People who are a little bit younger or closer to you in age are more likely to help you and empathize with your situation. All right, so just like before, here's a template that I wrote and would personally recommend. Feel free to copy, modify, use as you see fit. By the way, consider research programs too. There are honestly so many for high schoolers, teenagers, young people these days. MIT's RSI, that's the Research Science Institute. 6-week summer program, really competitive, top tier. SSP, the summer science program. If you do this as a high schooler, your odds of getting into a top 20 school literally go up by like more than 10%. It's that big of a deal. Plus, like every single top university has some kind of research program based on your field of interest. You just have to look for it. Stanford has a bunch for medicine. MIT, of course, has a ton for CS. Chicago for all their disciplines, data science, humanities, public policy. These days, some universities like UT Austin even has a dedicated research academy specifically for high schoolers. All right, humanities kids, the moment you've been waiting for. How to get the public policy, law, humanities internship. If you're an aspiring public servant or just fascinated by law, get active. Don't just read about political issues in your bedroom. Reach out to your local city council, the mayor's office, your school district board, your senator, your governor. Not only do they love young people getting active in politics, they're pretty much legally required to respond to their constituents, and they want your vote. So it's in their best interest to help you out. My biggest piece of advice is that instead of flat out asking for an internship from the get-go, instead, literally just email them and say, hey, how can I volunteer? How can I be of service? How can I help? Then show up. A lot of these council meetings, superintendent board meetings, they're literally open and free to the public. You just have to convince your parent to drive you. Or if you have a car, drive yourself. Same approach as the STEM kiddos too. You can also message your teachers, people in your community, and ask them for warm intros to connect you with people who are involved in community politics, that sort of thing. Also, don't sleep on community organizations. Nonprofits, local advocacy groups, and campaign offices are your new best friend. Whether it's climate change or education equity, immigration reform, public health, you name it. I pinky promise you there's a nonprofit in your city fighting for it. The best part, these guys love students. Like startups, they're constantly understaffed and overworked, which is good news for you because it means they need your help. Unlike CS or business, where if you cold emailed 100 of these organizations, you'd be lucky to hear back from a few. These nonprofits, these advocacy groups, if you contacted 100, I promise you, you'd have an internship and some meaningful work experience by the end of the week. You don't only have to use LinkedIn either. You can just use the good old-fashioned website and contact email address. So scour the website, find the person in charge, whether this is for a nonprofit or even a local law office where you want to contribute to. Even if they don't have a formal internship program listed on their site, just offer to volunteer. Some of the best internships just start by saying, hey, I believe in your mission. How can I contribute? Now, if you want something a little bit more formal, like a job at the government or working at a think tank, it's really gonna help your case if you develop a few technical, and by that I mean research skills. It might sound crazy, but truly, this is not impossible. People do it every year. I've seen it happen time and time again. How do you do that? You can learn statistical analysis to analyze things like voter registration data. You can participate in analytical writing and research competitions, both in high school and college, like John Locke or Harvard's International Review. Even just participating is something that you can mention when you apply to these jobs. It's not impossible to intern at the UN or at Congress. Not at all. I've personally seen it happen time and time again. The key concepts here are preparation, foundation building, and articulating exactly how you can contribute the moment you set foot inside the building. Furthermore, these types of organizations really care about your story, not just your skills. That's not so true in CS, where they literally give you a coding challenge, and it's like either you can do it or you can't. But if your ambition is to become a lawyer, they want to know, where is your motivation coming from? What's your story? Why do you even care about law in the first place when most young people don't these days? Here is the templates for the public policy law folks. You don't have to copy this manually. I'll attach it in the comment section and description below. As we wrap up, here are some common questions I sometimes get, as well as some reassurances to help calm down those nerves. Will people think I'm desperate? Absolutely not. But also, like, who cares if they do? It all boils down to this. Craft an amazing, personalized message, and remember that professionals out in the real world, they feel good when someone like you, a young student, shows genuine passion for their work. What if they reject me or don't reply? Statistically speaking, the majority of the time, they will reject you and you won't get a reply. Train yourself to recognize that this is nothing personal and that this is totally normal. That being said, if you notice that your approach isn't working, change it up. With that plugin that I recommended before, Streak, you can tell if people are opening your emails or if they're bouncing and they're not being received. This will let you know if you're being ignored and if you need to update or modify your header, your subject, the body of your message, stuff like that. By the way, guys, final tip, use your school email, your EDU email. Why? People are way more likely to respond when they see it's coming from a student, actually, and it's way less likely to be marked as spam and for it to bounce off of someone's professional email. How do I get people to respond? If you learn anything from me today, it's to stop copy pasting the same things and then mass sending it to everyone. This process takes time. You need to customize it to every individual you send it to. If they open your email and they can tell that it's been copy pasted, I promise you it's going straight to the virtual trash. How many people should I contact or email? I'd start with 50 to 100, honestly. But ultimately, it's not about how many you send out, it's about how many yeses you get. I've heard cases where some of our students, they sent really good, personalized kind of messages to 10 or 20 people, and that was it. They got, honestly, like 2 or 3 offers, and they were done. All it takes, my dear virtual little sibling, is one yes. By the way, our firm, the Elevated School, is actually in the process of building and making our LinkedIn page better. So if you guys could follow, I'd really appreciate it. Plus, we regularly hire interns every couple of months, so stay tuned for more opportunities. Who knows? One day, we might be working together. If you have any final thoughts, questions, emotions, reactions, feelings, please let me know in the comment section below. I read every single one. I spent an absurd amount of time making this video, and I really hope you found it helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, peace.